Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jennifer Ehalt with Common Sense Media, and we're here today to talk about media balance and well-being as we head off to summer. So we're partnering today with East Penn Area School District and Parkland Area School District in partnership with Niagara, the bottling company, to come together and collaborate around advice and tips and strategies to help your families find media balance at home. So today we really want to make sure that you understand or how to determine how much screen time is okay for your children. 2, we want to make sure that you understand social and emotional learning and the importance of media balance. And 3, we want to make sure that you are learning tips and strategies on how to set boundaries and expectations around screen time for your family. So let's get started. First off, we want to meet our team. Danny, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Danny Fox. I am in my 29th year in the elementary schools. I taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade for many years. Started in 1990, before the internet was in schools and before computers and before video games were really taking off. And then I became a school counselor about 12 years ago.
Great. Well, we're happy you're here with us today. Lisa, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Lisa Shervinsky. This is my 15th year in education. All of 14 years have been at the middle school level. I was a teacher for 9 years, and then now this is my 6th year as a school counselor.
Wonderful. So those are our 2 team members from East Penn Area School District. Now let's hear from our Parkland Area School District folks. JR, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, my name is J.R. Wren. I'm the coordinator of educational technology for Parkland School District. I've been doing this in educational technology thing for about 13 plus years now. Technology moves fast, so we've seen a lot of changes over those 13 years and certainly a lot of lessons learned, and always happy to partner with Common Sense Media on resources that we can use to help find balance.
Great, wonderful. And Lori?
Hi, I am Lori Fitch. This is actually going to be my 23rd year in education. I started as a teacher and then I made my way to a counselor position. And I've been kindergarten to 12th grade over the past 16 years, so I've seen a lot. And I'm also a licensed professional counselor. So I'm a counselor for Parkland High School as well.
Great. Well, I'm so thankful that you all could be here today to really share great resources with the families in the districts that you serve. So let's start off with, kind of for the next 20 minutes, we really want to discuss how we use media and balance as a family. How do we find quality content, set expectations around healthy use to prevent conflict, and raise media savvy consumers and the important part, our creators, right? So I think the first question that comes to every parent's mind is how much screen time is okay for my kids? So when we're talking about media balance, we really want to talk about time limits, right? And so I think if I take a look at the following list of items here, if you can feel good about saying, yes to a lot of these, it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job of balancing, screen time versus, offline activities. So, first thing, pay attention to how your kids act during and after watching TV, playing a video game, or hanging out online. There's signs there that, making sure they feel happy, when they're done, collaborating with friends on a social site, or do they feel good about, after they're watching a video game or playing a video game. And so mood, I guess, is really important to keep an eye on. Connecting socially with friends and family offline, making sure they're having enough quality time face-to-face with friends and family. Third, physically healthy and sleeping enough. Making sure that they find a time in the evening to turn off and recharge, right? So, devices should not be going to their bedroom at night to make sure that your, kiddos are getting a healthy full night's sleep. And then just make sure, the last 2, engaging with activities at school and achieving at school, obviously monitoring grades and just social activities that they're involved in. And last one I think is really important is interests and hobbies. This can be in any form, but just making sure that they are, finding different things offline to be just as engaged in and amused with and learning. So those are really important. If you said yes to a lot of them, you're pretty much on track. So we're going to talk about the different ways that we can consume media. JR, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about the kinds of, or the quality of media that our kids are consuming, we want to look at active versus passive use. This is a topic introduced through the U.S. Department of Education's National Ed Tech Plan. You can see here that U.S. Department of Education are defining active use versus passive use. So passive use, we're all familiar with this. We see our students passively consuming content, watching a video on YouTube, this sort of thing. It's not very interactive at all. It's not really engaging. It's not really stimulating them in the right way. Now, there are interactive uses. So playing Fortnite or a video game like that is interactive, but not necessarily what we call active use. So looking at media production, making connections with people. The example I like to use, instead of watching a YouTube video, how about we are like in the summertime creating a slideshow or putting together something like an Apple Clips, which is a summary of our vacation to the beach or things like that. These are examples of active use as defined by the National Ed Tech Plan that we want to see as positive opportunities to engage in media.
Exactly, especially with summertime coming up, lots of families are doing great, fun things just in their community on weekends, whether it's just a simple, festival or a nature walk, bike ride, or, family trips. And so those are all ways to capture, video, journal, and just capture the ideas and the memories throughout the summer. So easy ways that the whole family can be involved in terms of active use. Good, thank you. Mm-hmm. And so Lisa and Lori are going to talk to us a little bit about social emotional learning and that media balance.
All right. If you look at this graphic, I think it gives a good idea of what we kind of strive in school, outside of school with students when it comes to social emotional learning. And we want students to have these social emotional learning skills, both in person every day, but also online, so offline and online. The first one I'm just going to talk about, so when we talk about social emotional learning, it's about guiding, monitoring, and supporting students and our children basically in managing their emotions online and offline, being able to set goals and showing empathy and being able to build positive relationships and also develop good decision-making skills, both online and offline. When you look at the first self-awareness, this has to do with boundary setting. So we want students to be able to basically be able to set boundaries both offline and online, which a lot of times I work with middle school students. They need a lot of guidance, support, monitoring, and support, because a lot of times they don't know how to set those boundaries, and they need to work on developing those skills. The next one I'm just going to mention is self-management.
Can I actually jump in, Lisa?
Sure.
So with the self-awareness piece, one strategy for parents and kids to work together, especially in dealing with social media, is having that pre-conversation of what you want others to know about you. And I often have told parents and students, picture yourself standing in the middle of our cafeteria on a chair, and what would you be willing to tell the entire cafeteria? And of course, a ninth grader or a sixth grader is going to say nothing. So, talk about how with self-awareness, be aware of what you're sharing online is the equivalent of standing on a chair in the cafeteria and sharing your world out there. So I'm sorry to interrupt, Lisa, go ahead.
No. And I think that's a great way of explaining it to students, because a lot of times they do share everything that they're feeling, which leads us to the next one when we're talking about self-management. We know a lot of times that children, elementary, middle school, and even high school students struggle with impulse control, managing stress, because they have a lot of strong emotions and they just haven't developed those self-regulation skills. So again, online can be that open ground for them to share, but helping them develop, those boundaries and interconnecting, helping them regulate those emotions is very, very important. They do need a lot of adult supervision and monitoring when it comes to those things.
And Lisa, if I could jump in again too, with the self-management piece, I think it's a good conversation to have between parent and child that unfortunately, sometimes people who have issues it's very tempting to use media to put out those issues, but that doesn't mean it's healthy to do so. And, just because other people are doing that and saying, well, I feel depressed or I feel this way, that's not an appropriate way to express yourself or to elicit help with those issues, and to talk about how to do that appropriately.
Yeah, and also with the self-management piece, when we talk about like managing stress, if you look at a lot of the research, the way, gaming, social media, all of those things activate parts of the brain, those pleasure principles for a lot of our young people. And it almost becomes addictive, that they need to be on there. They need to be checking how many people like their post or how many people like their video. And it almost becomes very negative for them. And then they start going down the roads of anxiety, depression, and really lacking that self-esteem. So that's another piece that, when we're looking at self-management, is helping students to develop those self-regulation skills and also manage those strong emotions in a positive way, both online and offline.
And even to gain that, like you said, that understanding of the addiction center of the brain, that these items are meant to light those up, so to speak. Like, we know that research says Fortnite engineers have made it so it is addictive. It does elicit those part of the brain. So it's really important to gain an understanding that these were created to use. They want the kids to use it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to talk briefly about the remaining components. Social awareness is basically having the ability to empathize with others. Both online and offline, is knowing that if you post something, or you say something online, being able to empathize how that might affect somebody else. So I think that a lot of times that requires adult interaction and discussions with your child about, what your actions do, what your actions are, and then how that affects others. When we look at responsible decision-making, again, we're looking at, both online and offline, making decisions that are constructive, ethical, and safe. So it's really important to talk with your child about, what sites are safe, and anything, one thing I always say is anything that somebody can post and unanimously, like they're not letting you know who they are, you probably don't want to be on that site. So that's something to just, having children, not basically, cut them off from all those sites, but teaching them how to use those sites appropriately and safely. And then the last one is relationship skills. Basically being able to communicate and listen clearly, both online and offline. We know that, technology is such a major part of our world, and our young people are so savvy at it. So they need those relationship skills. They need to be able to build relationships both online and offline to really be successful 21st century learners and really be successful in the future world. So.
Great. Yes. Thank you both for such a great foundation to why social and emotional learning plays such an important part in the media balance. So it sounds like there's a time, a place, and a purpose for all the things we do, all the things we feel, all of our interactions. We want to be mindful of how those play out, whether online or offline. So good. Thank you. So what are some of the best practices around digital media and devices? So as a group, I would love to just kind of go through a couple of these to see, from an elementary perspective, a middle and a high school perspective, what are we seeing and how can we address it in a positive way? So talking about digital citizenship is really important, right? I know both districts have rolled out digital citizenship curriculum through Common Sense Media. And so students are definitely getting exposed to all of the scope and sequence and topics that way. Anybody else want to add anything around the digital citizenship piece?
Yeah, I'd like to start at the elementary level. What I say to parents all the time is they're at a critical time because they're entering a whole new world of parenting. Most parents have not been parented through this. So the whole idea of helping their children navigate technology, and especially when I think about my first graders and third graders in my school, these parents, they've never had a model to follow, so they need help doing this. And I explained to them that, not to be afraid, but that, they need these resources like Common Sense Media. They need to talk to the schools, principal, guidance counselor, to know what to do. And I try to stress, be a model for your children. and to always be aware and have open relationships with your children. Talk to them about what they're doing in school, the projects they're making, and then who they're connecting to and how they're connecting. Have that open dialogue from a very young age, be part of that, and try to guide them through this. And you're going to learn as your child is learning, because this is a whole new world for them as parents.
You're absolutely right. Yep. Go ahead, Lisa.
I would just like to add, I think modeling, digital citizenship as adults is so important for our children. One of the things too, I think a lot of times parents, I know myself as a parent, we focus a lot on teaching children good people, manners and how to interact appropriately, but that's not just offline. Like because technology is such a major part of the world, parents and educators need to teach children how to not only act that way offline, but also act that way online.
Exactly. Good.
I also think that teachable moments at any level, that you can actually, I've done this with my own children, and I've showed them something and said, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts on it, whether you or not, how do you feel about this? Because it really generates a good discussion about, what we're watching, what we're hearing, through media.
Exactly. I think it's just about, addressing the situations as opposed to ignoring them. It sounds like the more we can dig deep in with our kids, and ask the questions and be a part of it, the more we can all learn. So good. And then we talked a little bit about the next one, encouraging creation as well as consumption. We gave some ideas about how we can get kids creating more than consuming. And so we'll kind of go on to the next one. I'm talking about commercials and other advertising. Why is this so important? Does anybody have any insight?
Something I want to say through experience at the elementary level again, I have found that younger kids have had a difficulty separating the real world from the virtual world. And so they get sucked into things so easily. And I think, like Lori said, asking the child, what do you think about this? But it is a whole process of teaching. And I know I keep going back to elementary, but at this developmental stage, kids are not ready for a lot of the things that could be found out there on the internet. So that parents really need to be beside them, guiding them through this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Go ahead.
I would just like to add, at the middle school, and I know some of our teachers have been working with students on this, is that just not taking like what you read or what you see for face value, like looking at like, is it a valuable piece of evidence? Like what's the motive behind it, and having those teachable conversations with children and teaching them how to evaluate what they, media, and whether, it's positive, negative, what's the purpose, what's the motivation for it. So a lot of times at the middle level, like, our students read it online and they believe it's fact, and a lot of times it's not fact, and teaching them those skills on how to evaluate those things.
Yep, that's a really good point. Almost like that fake versus real, whether it's a photo, a news article, a Instagram message, a Snapchat message. Just understanding what's real and what's fake is really important, and talking about that. Good. Connecting media to real life and using media with your kid. I think most of you kind of, brought this up as well as an important rule in understanding how to take things offline and model that. And using it with your kid. There's lots of different things out there that you can do as a family and participate in together as a team. And so if you kind of take that approach, it can be fun and positive at the same time. And then last but not least, set expectations and know your own rules, which we're really going to give you a lot of tips and advice around how do you set this up in your home, right? And so we'll keep going as we go through.
So, some of the things that we're trying to ultimately prepare our learners for, we talk about elementary, middle, and high school. The next step is like going out into the world, right? So referring back to the ideas that we want to bring for job skills, the World Economic Forum tells us that things like that make people uniquely human, the ability to have emotional intelligence, the ability to be creative, those sort of active use skills we see reflected in the World Economic Forum's indicators of job skills that employers are looking for. So we think the path to do this, especially as we consider like what we're engaging with media use over summer break, things like that, are part of what we are doing here at Parkland with Parkland Ready 21. So, first and foremost, making creators of content is just huge. Making global connections or even local connections in the community by providing students authentic projects. So those projects that are authentic, that our students are making community connections on, they don't stop when the last bell rings in June. They're actually continuing to work on these connected projects over the summer too. Great opportunities to use media purposefully. And ultimately, know that when kids from Parkland or East Penn are coming home to you over the summer and every night, that they've gone through content and curriculum and lessons that give you a common language that you can use as well with your kids. So when you say, creating upstanding digital citizens, upstanders, a key piece of language that we equip our kids with as early as in kindergarten, to know about making good decisions and creating positive contributions for online communities. So we're trying to run this through that filter and give you as parents the tools that you need to help keep it going during the summer.
Great. I love that idea of common language. I really do feel like it benefits in a positive culture for everyone.
I would just say too, Jennifer, like all of the lists of skills that we see here, none of them necessarily require technology. So these are really 21st century skills. It's 2019. These are just life skills now. Okay. This is just a thing that is, whether you're using technology or not, a good skills to have.
Absolutely. That's a very good point around the non-technology piece. And then East Penn, you want to give us a snapshot of your graduate?
I think, what JR said was very exactly explains this very well. It's kind of where our district is headed also. I've done a lot of stuff as a counselor with the career end of it and meeting with, businesses and the outside, career and just providing students those skills to be future ready. So if you see a lot of these skills and attributes are kind of our focus in the East Penn School District, is not only preparing students to be academically successful, but basically having those social emotional skills, those life skills to be successful overall as 21st century individuals.
Absolutely. And, in taking a look at both districts, obviously you're very proactive, in addressing all of these skills that students would need to be successful. And I love that, it's very progressive as well, and keeping up with where students are at, what they need. So very impressive. And so how can we, as we take all the things we talked about and considered in terms of balance, social emotional learning, preparation for the future, how can we as parents set screen rules that stick, especially this time of year? How can we, first of all, help them make quality choices? What are some things we can give parents as advice around quality choices of content?
I want to start at the elementary level by saying something that we talk about to parents all the time is that there's got to be other choices besides electronic choices. So other games that are not electronic, learning a musical instrument, being involved in some kind of clubs or activities, so that they can direct their energies towards other things, but that they can use technology. I like to make the comparison that technology is a tool, but like a hammer, you don't use it for everything. And
Right.
that, they can enjoy technology, they can create with technology, but that they have to have the other avenues to go to. And by being a model as the parent, by doing those things, not always checking your phone and not always, being online, but interacting with your child and doing other things is the best way to start at the elementary level.
Very good. How about middle and high? Any advice?
I think middle school students, a lot of times they want to know the why. Like, I think it's very helpful a lot of times, sometimes they're very resistant to media balance. But I think if they understand the reasons why and teaching them that balance and teaching them moderation and giving them access to other avenues to spend their time is so important. So I think that why do you need to balance media? What is the purpose is really helpful for middle school students.
Great. In high school?
From the high school, perspective, I think we want them to realize they're about to launch into adulthood and they need to do their own self-monitoring. They need to be able to complete tasks as adults and not be bogged down by one particular thing. So I think helping them understand an adult balance with screen rules, with screen time.
Absolutely. Yes. Putting it into their hands and that responsibility is really important at that time. And don't forget to Common Sense Media has ratings and reviews for quality content. So you can go to our website, commonsensemedia.org, and we have rated and reviewed apps and games and music and books. So we can tell you the age appropriateness that that piece of content delivers, as well as if there's potential for learning. And so really good way for you to kind of get involved in some of the apps and games your kids are playing, and monitor and figure out how to make a good choice for your family around the content that's being delivered through their devices. So the next one is cracking down on multitasking. I know everyone battles this, right? Even as adults, we battle multitasking. We all think we do it. We all think we do it well, but the reality is it can be negative. And so what are some, tips or advice on multitasking that you may have to share with parents? Anybody have any? I know a lot of times kids listen to music while doing homework, which I think that's minor. But do you see a lot of multitasking with your students in the classroom?
We see it at the high school level, and things start to intensify for many of our students who take honors and AP classes. And they think that they can give minimal attention to studying. So we've really presented to them, when you're studying, you need to be focused on that and have a plan, because you need to really analyze and synthesize the information you're taking in, and you can't do that if you're distracted. So we kind of approach it from that standpoint of you're not getting everything done in your life, and you're saying you have no time. We tell the kids, keep a record of how much time you're checking. Is it 300 times? Think of all the things you could have did while you were doing that. So we try to show them that piece.
I would just like to add, at the middle school level, I think we're like more about still in the teaching. So a lot of times we'll work with students on establishing schedules, like both in school and outside of school, when they have that kind of more independent time of trying to prioritize, what is most important, getting done my schoolwork, and almost, a lot of times I talk to students with rewarding yourself with some of that media time after you've prioritized what you needed to get done. And setting limits. Rewarding yourself shouldn't be all night. Maybe take an hour, take a half an hour break after you've gotten done what you needed to get done.
Absolutely. Good. And I think my last point, just making sure we're present. I think that's another big piece, being where you are, enjoying the moments where you are, as opposed to somewhere wonderful and you're trying to take a video with your phone, right? And so being present is also something to consider. And last but not least, I think this one's the biggest one, is finding ways to say yes. I think as parents and even educators, I find that even my parent myself, I want to say less no all the time. And so what are ways we can find to say yes to our kids and sort of put a positive spin where we are supporting them and we understand that this is where they are and where they live. And so what are some things we can offer parents?
I think, especially with summer vacation coming up, using technology to keep a journal, to videotape things that they're doing, and research places that they may go, and that type of thing. Again, I'm always focused at the elementary level, but I think using technology that way, and then when there is time that you want some downtime and you want to play a game, you can do that. But that you've got to limit it, and that you've got to, like Lisa said, have a schedule, and that, okay, you've got the 20 minutes to do that, but then we need to move on and stick to that.
Right, exactly. Because it is okay. You're right. It's okay to play a game. It's just balancing the time that you're playing those games.
Exactly.
Good. How about middle school?
I would just like to add, like, education. I think teaching, I know at the middle level, it's a lot of times teaching students what is appropriate, what is good media for them, what is not, and then also giving them the skills of setting those boundaries and knowing, what they should be on, what they shouldn't be on, what they should be watching, or not necessarily should, but is helpful to them. And giving them that evaluation tool of being able to independently evaluate.
Exactly. And I know lots of kids, when I talk to parents, they say, did you common sense it? It almost becomes a verb in households, and kids know what to look for. They know to look for the age, and they know to look for, if they're at that point or if it's healthy or not, in the star ratings. And so they start to understand too, if, common sense is a tool you'd like to use in your home, kids know what to look for. And so that's just another resource that might help you in some of the decision makings and creating a list of yes, content for your family.
I would just like to add with parents, I think it's so important to provide that supportive environment in case students do get into that, in like a place where maybe they're feeling uncomfortable, being able to talk to a parent and say, I don't know what to do. Can you help me with this? Is so important too, because I think a lot of times our young people don't know what to do. So then they get themselves into situations that are not always good for them. So it's having that supportive, open environment that they can come and talk to you.
Absolutely. That's a really good piece of advice. And so just to kind of wrap up and have some takeaways for families in terms of, elementary tips for media balance, create screen-free time zones in your home, making sure you double check your parental controls on all the devices that your kids are using, establish clear family rules. And we talked about, when it's okay and not okay, time and purpose, playing together, right? Quality media and doing things together is always positive. And then healthy behaviors, right? Want to make sure that they're talking about their feelings when they're involved in this. That social emotional learning piece is so important, as much as it is offline as it is online. And then for the middle and high school students or kids, we want to make sure, again, screen-free time zones, I think at any age are important, just setting up places where you could just talk and be social face-to-face. Explore built-in digital well-being tools, so check out different things on their devices, whether it's, autoplay functions, limitation functions, making sure you understand all of the settings and the apps that they're using. And then modeling. We talked a lot about modeling behavior as parents. They're watching our every move, no matter what age. And so we have to be mindful of how we use our device and when we use our device. And then, just, again, that social emotional learning really kicks in middle school, obviously, in high school, when, just understanding the development that they're going through, the decisions that they are starting to make, whether good or bad, and how they take feedback. It really affects them. So just be mindful of their mood and their attitude and how they're feeling when engaged in using their device for different purposes. And then last but not least, number 5, I think, as the students get older and your kids get older, you'll want to start to understand how tech companies are designing these things and making money, whether it's, the video games, we talked a little bit about, for example, Fortnite was built to last 10 minutes and kids are playing it for hours. And so there's something behind that as the why. So as parents, I think we need to understand the algorithms of some things and, why companies might want kids to spend more time on their platforms and whether it's, good or bad, but just be mindful of some of the things that they're engaged in. And so as you break for summer and you think about gearing up, Common Sense Media offers a family media agreement where it's a contract. And I know a lot of school districts head out to summer with this. It's a great way to sit down with your family and talk about all of your expectations, how to stay safe and, what you hope to achieve throughout the summer with our devices. And then you as a parent can sign it, your kiddos can sign it, can, be displayed in your home. And it's a good reference, talking piece, communication piece to refer back to over the summer months. And then my last resource is Common Sense Media also offers a parent newsletter. If you go to commonsensemedia.org/newsletters, you can sign up with an email, and this newsletter will give you timely information, seasonal information in terms of all things media and technology for your family. So I encourage you to check that out, sign up. I think you'll find it to be a really good resource. And so I just want to make sure we thank our team today. All of you are rock stars. We can't thank you enough for sharing the experience that you have with the students in your school and helping parents navigate digital parenting at home. And so we hope we gave you a lot of good advice and resources to think about this and move forward with your children in a positive way. And so good luck and have fun with it. Thank you.